I first played Firewatch several years ago when it launched on the PlayStation 4. It received mostly positive reviews and wasn't too expensive, so I gave it a shot. I enjoyed it enough that now, years later, once it was announced for the Switch, I was somewhat excited to be able to play it on the go. Firewatch has a bit of history though, with poor performance. When it originally released, there were significant issues with how the game ran, evidently streaming being the culprit, and it took many months before those were ironed out. I bought and played the game to completion before any major patches to improve performance were released. I also enjoyed the game in its initial state, so I figured how bad could the Switch port be? Even if it is on par with the pre-patch PlayStation 4 release, then it is still plenty playable. Well, it turns out that isn't entirely true. When I first booted up Firewatch on my Switch, I was playing it docked. I played through the opening sequence and was able to explore near the tower without any real issues. So far, so good. But once the story kicks in and you start exploring beyond the tower, things start to fall apart. The performance rivals about what the PlayStation 4 release did when I played it. Basically, the same issues at the same points in the game. The Switch version doesn't look as good as the PlayStation 4 release, but it still doesn't look bad either. No, where the real issue comes into play is in handheld mode. The performance here is, in some sections, downright awful. I think there are areas where the frame rate is in the single digits to low teens consistently. The game isn't too blurry, though you can tell it isn't running native resolution. Still, with performance this bad, it largely negates the reason to even have this game on the Switch. I wanted the ability to replay Firewatch on my terms, and maybe have it be one of those games that I go back to once a year. There are some things that Firewatch does really well. The environment is beautiful, and it creates a believable world that feels like an open world even if it is actually very linear. That can be to its detriment sometimes when you just want to jump over a rock or a log and the game just won't let you. But generally, the location is fun to explore and it provides a sense of being alone out in the wilderness. Voice acting is generally very good. It is amazing how much more emotionally invested you can be when the voice acting isn't terrible.
Time to go.
Okay.
Don't be nervous.
Maybe I'll just live out here now.
Henry the Hermit.
Maybe I'll find myself a baby bear to keep as a pet and live off the land like Grizzly Adams. Whoa, I found a turtle. Maybe it's a tortoise. It's a thing with a shell.
Well, isn't that something?
It's actually pretty cute.
Since you never really see any other person in the game, up close anyway, it truly is a solo experience outside of when you talk to Delilah. I don't want to spoil the story as, even from the very beginning of the game, it is meant to keep you guessing all the way right up to the end. There are some people out there that don't care for the ending, but I think that is more due to playing a lot of video games and watching outlandish movies. The story wraps up nicely and is a realistic and logical conclusion to your adventure. Music is sparse in Firewatch. Instead, voice and environmental sounds are what you will hear. The crunching of sticks under your feet and birds chirping all around you. That is Firewatch's music. It does a tremendous job of making you feel like you are alone in the wilderness. And for those of us who have been out in the woods alone, it captures that feeling quite well. Overall, Firewatch is a solid game that I think everyone should experience at least once. It doesn't take too long to complete, and you'll enjoy the time you spend with it. It may even elicit some emotions as you are forced to make decisions about your life in the game that you are ultimately uncomfortable with. However, I simply cannot recommend that you play this on the Switch if you have any other way to play it. If you do buy it for Switch, I highly recommend that you play it in docked mode. It isn't as though handheld mode is completely unplayable, but this game deserves better than prolonged sections of very low frame rates. Perhaps there will be a patch to help iron out handheld performance, but until that happens, try it out on another console.